Okay, happy Friday, everybody. Glenn Stein here, and wanted to do a share screen with you on something that is really, really important. Actually, that's the first thing that we're looking at today, and this is the thing I want you to look at here. Okay, this thing here. We're looking at this particular aspect here, this line right here. 82. Okay, look at this. And this is probably the number one thing that people get confused about, mostly on the seller side. So if you are selling your property in Florida, this is part of the contract I want you to pay attention to, whether it's the as-is contract or the FAR bar. This right here is really, really important. And a lot of times it's marked, as you see here, it says financing. Buyer will pay cash for the purchase of the property at closing, period. And no one ever reads past that. So they think, okay, it's a cash offer. It's a cash deal. Not necessarily. It can be, but let's read further. There is no financing contingency to the buyer's obligation to close. Okay. If buyer obtains a loan for any part of the purchase price of the property, buyer acknowledges that any terms and conditions imposed by the buyer's lender or by the CFPB requirement shall not affect or extend the buyer's obligation to close or otherwise affect any terms of the conditions of this contract. Meaning that the buyer has the option of getting financing. They can get financing. It just means that the contract is not contingent upon the buyer getting financing, meaning that if it didn't close for whatever reason, that basically means that the seller would have legal rights to the escrow money once it's put into at the title company, an escrow account at the title company. So keep this in mind. By the way, this is a strategy that many buyers use to buy a property. They'll check mark that particular box, meaning they're not making their contract contingent upon financing. And then sometimes we've seen this before. I get this a lot of times with my agents who call me up and they might have an issue. They have a question about this, where sometimes the buyers will use this as strategies, thinking, okay, well, we're going to fool the seller. We're going to fool the seller into believing that there is a cash offer. Sometimes it's done maliciously, mostly not, right? I think most people are good people and they're just don't want to make the contract contingent upon financing, but sometimes that's not disclosed by the other side. And I think full disclosure would be nice. Tricking people and fooling people is not necessarily a great way to do business. But keep in mind, if that box is checked, if you're selling a property in Florida and that box is checked, it merely means that it could be cash or it could be financing, just not contingent upon the financing. So just remember that when you're buying or selling in the state of Florida, and specifically here in the Villages area. That is something that I've seen people have a hang up about, that sellers, maybe the buyer has decided they're going to do financing after all, and the seller's upset. What do you mean financing? What do you mean there's going to be an appraisal? I thought we were doing cash. And they do have the right to switch, of course, but a little bit disingenuous sometimes along that front. So that's a thing. The second thing, there's another thing that is connected to this that I think we need to pay attention to in Florida. So obviously, I'm the broker here at Realty Executives in the Villages and Ocala. So we've seen thousands and thousands of deals. So my expertise is really looking over contracts and guiding my people through the process. So if you need somebody here, if you need a referral for a buyer's agent, somebody to help you through the process in buying a property, or you've got a property here that you want to sell, just let me know and I'll find the right person for you. Okay. Obviously that's part of the service. There's no charge on my part. There's no additional charge other than the commission that particular agent's going to charge, but I can find the right person for you that will fit your needs. So number one, make sure that you understand when that box is checked, it may or may not be cash. The second part of that is that we need to look at, if you are selling a property and you've got a buyer that check marks that, making sure that they do have the funds, a proof of funds letter, which might be a letter from their bank with letterhead stating that they do have the funds, or a copy or a screenshot of their bank statement with accounts usually redacted, crossed out. So, their secret financial information is not revealed, but we know that they have X amount of funds and their names are there. So those are two things I want you to be aware of that can be very confusing for a lot of people. So hopefully that clarifies some things there. That's one thing I wanted to cover today. The other thing is that, we've seen a little bit of a tapering off in sales, and I want to go over that with you as well. We're going to go over the other numbers that I've pulled up today. So let me pull that up. And I've noticed that there are 83 properties on the market right now. So we're going to take a look at that. If we look at actually 81 properties, when we do a search here, if we do a search here, 81 properties available in the villages. So that's gone up. It's interesting how week to week it's fluctuated. Just the last couple of weeks, we've seen the upper 60s. Now it's gone up to lower 80s. I think the high that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 months has been like 83. So this gives you an idea of what's available on the marketplace right now. So not a lot under 300, but there are some properties still available. As you can tell here, 25. We got 25 properties. About 10 of those are manufactured homes. 3, 4, about 28, 29 properties, including manufactured homes, are under 300,000, and then over 300,000. This gives you an idea. Now, keep in mind, don't be discouraged by this if you're buying in our area, because there's constantly things coming off the market, but there's constantly new properties that are coming on the market, and we're not seeing, up until this last week, we haven't seen a big increase in inventory. Okay. But this gives you an idea of what we're looking at. Let's move over to what's happened over the last 7 days. New listings, 26 new listings over the last 7 days. That tells you, that's evidence there's new properties coming on the market. Under contract, and this is probably the closest margin we've seen in a very long time. So in other words, 26 new listings, 31 under contract. That is probably the closest we've seen those two numbers be in a very long time, 26 and 31 properties coming off the market, and then obviously 35 closed. So definitely a closing of the gap there. 10 pricing decreases, no price increases, 1 expired listing, 1 temporarily off the market, 3 back on the market. That tells me that slowly increasing inventory. Now, just like always, what's so fascinating, and you guys that have followed me for, from the beginning, the last 18 months, the OG, the old school people that have been with me from the very get-go, when I've been measuring this, tracking and measuring, you can watch a lot of the videos I've done. You can go back in time and look at, we were tracking the inventory back in the beginning of 2020 when COVID first started. Because I noticed that there were changes, very interesting changes going on in the marketplace that we've never seen before. That we were in the 450 range, and most of the year last year we were in the we were probably about in the 400s and definitely 350 plus. And then beginning of December, January this year, inventory has dramatically decreased, and we've seen this free fall in inventory and increase in pricing and appreciation. Now we're seeing a little bit of an increase in inventory. We're going to track it every single week. You're going to be at the front lines. This is really when you hear stuff on the news, usually it's about 3 to 4 or 5 months late. You're going to hear about stuff, if inventory were to go up dramatically, you would hear about it by the end of the year, right? You'd hear about it 3 months down the road. You're going to hear about it here pretty much to the minute, to the week, right? Like as soon as we have answers on the weekly numbers, which is a big tracking mechanism, I would say that I feel safe with anything under 150 listings. Once we get past 150 listings, that's definitely proof that there's a real softening going on in the market, like a real softening in the marketplace, and maybe a flattening in pricing. But as long as inventory is really light and we've got a pretty good demand, then I think pricing is going to continue to go up, maybe not as sharply as it has. I mean, we saw 20 plus, in certain cases, we've seen 40, 50% increases in pricing. And then in certain cases, not as much, 15 to 20%, depending on location, depending on view, depending on, how private things are. Depends how close you are to the squares, whether it's Sumter Landing, Brownwood, or Spanish Springs. Depends on what village you're in. Depends on, Marion County or south of 466. Like where we are, we're located right across the street from Laurel Manor. And, so that's a lot of what we're seeing right now is just really observing the marketplace. That's really what I'm paying attention to, is looking at inventory very, very sharply. So keep it here. Please subscribe to the channel so you can be dinged when we do a new video. I've done, this is my third video this week, because we had a special guest and Pastor Dan, and we had president of the POA, Cliff Weiner, on, and he was talking about some issues that are slowly getting resolved, but we'll have him on probably in a month or two as we get more news on that. So if you have questions, feel free to call me. I've had several people call me, and I love getting that. Leave comments here if you have some comments or questions. If you've got questions for me directly, I've had several people call me over the last several weeks on different things, the availability of rentals. We do have rentals. There's a few that are available. I don't know if there's a ton for season. I don't remember what we got recently, but we've seen a lot of movement on that. At least 6 or 7 bookings over the last couple of days for seasonal rentals from January on. But call the office. That's a thing as well. Like if you have a need for seasonal or long-term rentals, 352-753-7500, 352-753-7500. You can also connect with me. If you have questions about the marketplace, what you should do, you need some advice, 352-572-3796, 352-572-3796. You can also visit our site. Obviously, you see it there for the latest properties, everything that's available. The one thing I am seeing, one other thing I do want to mention is the one thing I am seeing is we're pretty even as far as inventory on our MLS side versus VLS. Communicating with a lot of you on people that are buying new construction, and the new construction inventory is really light, really tight. They're building it fast, but they're also selling them faster. So there's waiting lists and lottery lists and all that kind of stuff. So no judgment here on what you want. It's about being happy, whether it's resale or new sale or new construction, whatever. Really, I'm okay with whatever you want, because eventually I think you'll find that we provide an amazing service on the MLS side. And eventually, if you want to sell that for something different, you'll call us. So Realty Executives is the company. We've been here actually since 2004. Many people don't know that, especially if you're newer to the villages. We've been here since 2004. The number one, and not just number one because I own it, but number one as far as volume and history and track record from the get-go here on MLS, on the MLS side, the realtor side. So let me know if you have questions. Happy Friday. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.